I'm sorry, I see Trisha's name on here twice. Is it coming like that for you, Ed? Okay. Hey, Chris.
Hello, how are y'all?
Good.
Good.
Hey, Lasheen, are you nearby?
I am. Hi.
Just want to check, we are having a presentation today and we'll need screen share. Is that enabled?
Yep, you all should have it.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Chris, remind me, we need 4 for quorum.
Yes, 4 is quorum. We do have 4, but at least we did. Did we lose somebody? I thought
We have Ed, James, myself.
I saw Addison on there. Maybe I was mistaken. So we don't have quorum.
Okay.
Give it a minute. I think
Yeah,
everybody is expected. But hello, Yolanda.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
We have quorum now with Jonathan.
Now we've got Jonathan. Maybe just give it a minute or so
Yeah.
with everybody getting in. And there is Addison.
Hi.
Hello. And it looks like Jay's joining. And there he is. Welcome, Jay. All right, Jai, if you want to kick it off, you've got full.
All right, everybody.
floor.
This is my first go at it, so bear with me, but we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item on the list here is any public comments. Anybody in the audience or from the public would like to make any comments?
No public today.
All right, I don't see that on my end, so that's great. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. 2 items here, one for the minutes for February 8th and the treasurer's report for January. Anybody have any questions or comments about those? Doesn't sound like it. So we'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes for February 8th.
So moved.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the treasurer's report. Chris, did you have anything for that, or anybody have any questions on that? All right, we'll move to approve.
Yeah, so moved.
All in favor? Oh, excuse me, I didn't get a second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got the hand raises. Any opposed? Doesn't sound like it. Motion passes. All right. On to new business. I believe, Chris, you'll take this away.
Sure, I'd be happy to introduce our presentation today. Miss Yolanda Harrell is with us. Some of you may be familiar with Yolanda and her work in the community over the last, I don't want to guess how many years you've been here, Yolanda, but it's
I don't
several,
know.
many. She'll tell us, but in any case, Yolanda is leading an effort by New Hill Development Corporation, which is a fairly recently newly formed nonprofit that is doing some work in the community and with some city support, and then at least initially to do a small area plan for the Star Hill neighborhood. And then they are taking that and moving on to some practical projects, one of which has great interest to me and to our work in economic development. And I wanted you all to have a sense of their work, where they're coming from and what they're proposing, just as an awareness at this point. They are attempting at least initially, multiple grants to help fund this, but a Go Virginia grant, which you all are certainly familiar with, and we have provided matching dollars for those city-based Go Virginia grants, and we've had several success stories with those to date, and hopefully this will be another one of those. But wanted to give you all a chance to hear from Yolanda, and she has a presentation. It's a PowerPoint slide deck to walk through. And with that, I'll turn it over to Yolanda and take it away.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Chris. It's a pleasure to be with you all this afternoon, evening. And I am happy to be able to present and talk about what we're up to and then what we believe will be a very impactful opportunity for our community. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this all works out as planned. Let me do this. All right. Can everyone see that? All right, wonderful. All right, so essentially we are New Hill Development Corporation, and what we're bringing to you today is our Beacon project, Beacon's shared use commercial kitchen. So this is actually phase one of a larger vision that we have, and it really was born out of the work that we did with the Star Hill community and the broader community around what could potentially happen from economic development, especially as it relates to the African-American community and our participation in the local economy. And so some of the things that we heard when we were going through that process, as we did our small circles of folks from entrepreneurs to just kind of community members at large, one of the things that we heard over and over again was having space and opportunity to come together and be able to co-collaborate and innovate with one another, and having a lower cost barrier to entry pathway to be able to start businesses. And so part of what we've envisioned kind of addresses that. So to get into what specifically what a shared use kitchen is all about, we have been doing a lot of research, doing a lot of interviews with a number of incubators around the country. And so when you think about like a shared use kitchen, this may be a model that's a little newer to our community, although there's one or two that exist here, but it's really something that is pretty commonplace across the country and is picking up pace. But think of it like a gym membership or like a WeWorks opportunity where folks can come in, they don't buy the equipment, they just kind of have access to it, do what they need to do, and then they go on about their business and they get the benefit of the space. And so just to give you a little background for those of you who may be unfamiliar with New Hill, Chris mentioned we are a fairly young organization. We were incorporated in 2018. However, we started talking and organizing in 2017, and really kind of thinking about like Black participation in local development as it relates to the development that's happening in and around our community. And so that's kind of was the impetus for why we were able to form. And since that inception, we have reached a number of what we believe are great milestones and achievements We did receive an initial donation from the city, for which we did develop a vision plan for the Star Hill area that was adopted by the comprehensive plan in 2021, excuse me, not 2020, because that was a different year. And so that was adopted by City Council in April of 2021. For that particular plan, we did receive an Inclusive Community Award from the Governor's Housing Conference as it relates to that plan and the work that the community did in that. We also launched our Financial Capability Program, which we do that in partnership where we offer financial coaching. We have since offered foreclosure mitigation as well as first-time home buyer program. And then, of course, for this particular project, we spent most of 2020 and 2021 doing research and putting our plan together around it. And we were able to receive an initial grant from the governor's office in October of last year to begin implementation of this particular project. So that's kind of where we are in terms of some of the things that we've accomplished. But let me give you first a little background on shared use kitchens and culinary incubators and why they're important and what they can mean. And especially it's very important now as we're coming out and climbing out of the effects of COVID and trying to reestablish, especially the hospitality industry in particular, but also just a number of businesses that are really starting to look at space and use and just cost and capital in general. And what this particular model will do is it basically is a fully equipped commercial kitchen. And what we're seeking to build is a 10,000 square foot commercial kitchen that allows for multiple operators to operate at any one time in this space. It definitely helps to remove restrictive barriers that one would experience, especially in our particular community. We have a lot of expensive storefront space, and that is cost prohibitive for a lot of members of our community. So this helps to address that, especially if the individuals have not proven their concept yet. But not only for startups, what it also does, it helps existing businesses be able to expand their capacity. So I'm sure many of you have been in restaurants here in our community where you notice how small their kitchens are. For some of those restaurants that want to be able to expand to doing more catering, that is pretty limiting when you have a very small kitchen where you're trying to support the existing restaurant in addition to trying to cater out of it. So what this has the ability to do is offer individuals another space that they don't have to build, that they don't have to outfit with equipment, but they have the ability to use and therefore expand their existing businesses to be able to do more. And hopefully will help get a number of our businesses back on track financially. So oftentimes you may have heard different terms in terms of when we think about shared kitchens. One could be called a community kitchen. You've heard the term shared kitchen, incubators, accelerators. And when we think about a culinary incubator, where we are operating is from that kind of that shared use kitchen space over to the accelerator. Community kitchen is really something that's just kind of designed for individuals to be able to come in and use at will. Doesn't really focus on business. We're focused on business. And so we want to take but a comprehensive approach as we are looking to develop these businesses out. Now, when you think about an incubator and you think about New Hill, our goal is to create more economic opportunity for the Black community. And so the incubator itself focuses on the Black community. However, the shared use kitchen focuses on the broader community. And this is where that networking opportunity happens and that innovation and collaboration happens. And so that's how we will think about this project and how this project will function. To kind of give you an idea around the journey an individual might take that may be coming through the incubator. We are partnering with existing programs in the community. CIC offers a 16-week program, entrepreneurial training program. There's also programs through SBDC, as well as there's Catalyst at UVA. There's a number of programs that exist. We're not trying to reinvent that portion of the wheel. What we're trying to do is to build upon that. And so since individuals have gone through that, or they may already be in business for at least a year. We want to take that learning and that knowledge and we want to build on it. And so then we partner with our folks, our partners over at Culinary Concepts, and we've created a culinary boot camp that will then focus on this on food business specifically, working with the chefs that are part of that organization to work with the entrepreneurs on a number of different areas as it relates to operating a food business, because many of our entrepreneurs that are seeking to either start these businesses or have started these businesses may have never operated a restaurant in the past. They may have a really good idea, great concept. And so now we want to think about how do we understand how to operate in the food space and what does that mean in terms of their ability to grow their business. And then of course, once the kitchen is up and running, those individuals then come into the kitchen, but there's ongoing supports. One of the many things that we learned during the pandemic as we were seeking to work with entrepreneurs to get PPP and EIDL loans is that many of them did not have necessary financials in place to be able to produce reports necessary to participate in some of those loans or benefits that were available to them during that period. And then also there was many that did not have either online presence or any type of marketing strategy in place to be able to pivot during that period, which produced an enormous amount of stress on those businesses. And so that presented to us as an opportunity of what we needed to think about as we think about the support that's being offered. Entrepreneurs know that they need a bookkeeper, they know that they need marketing, but when you have limited access to capital, then you're going to make some tough decisions about where that capital is going to be best utilized. And most often that's going to be on the core business. So what we will do as part of their membership to to the kitchen is that we will offer those support services. We will have bookkeeping and marketing for them that is covered by the cost of their participation. That way we know that those things are in place, and as they seek to get additional capital later on, then they will absolutely be ready to be able to take on that additional capital. This is just a visualization of how this works in terms of our relationship with our partner organizations, so that you can see that this is it's a cycle, it's ongoing. We are also partnering with the Small Business Development Center. They have advisors that can continue to support the entrepreneur in their journey, to offer one-on-one advising and research and things like that as their business grows. This is a little bit of a background on myself and our partners over at Culinary Concept. I have a 15-year background in the hospitality industry prior to transitioning into starting our organization here. I worked as a general manager of hotel. We here locally, we converted the Red Roof Inn to the Graduate Hotel, which we added cafe and a rooftop restaurant to that space. And I also operated a food truck and catering business here with my husband. And so definitely have a love for the food business and certainly have an appreciation what it takes to build and develop something. But I also have a long history in corporate America, from Xerox Corporation to the hospitality industry, where definitely had to do a lot of management in terms of underperforming assets and construction. And our partner, Chef Antoine, has a long history in the corporate world as well as an executive chef, not only working in the United States, but in some of our island countries. But also he currently runs a program that partners with the city, the Go Cook program, where we're doing workforce development in our current relationship with the city. You all are familiar with Charlottesville. I'm not going to go heavy into this, but a couple of key things that I want to point out, and some of this information we get from just the reports that are available to us. 35% of Black families in Charlottesville are below poverty. And so that's a significant number. Another significant number is that we have more than 400 restaurants in our community, but only about 12 are public facing Black-owned restaurants that exist within our community, and many of them have came in recent years. Storefront are extremely expensive. And so as a result, that prevents a lot of folks from being able to move their vision forward. And so our goal is to address those kinds of things. And so this just kind of gives you an idea of what an individual, the impact a project like this has on the individual business or the individual that owns the business. Looking at a shared use kitchen versus someone that builds their own kitchen to be able to do a similar type business. And in this particular example, we're looking at a small catering business. An individual could go about building that whole thing out, and it's roughly going to cost them about $6,100. And that's just to operate it from the basic. That doesn't include labor, doesn't include all those other things. But in a shared use kitchen space, then, when to go from training to startup and their monthly lease, their overhead costs are pretty minimal by comparison, which then gives them the ability to have about $43,000 in savings because they're not paying for equipment and they're not paying this significant lease, and they don't have the money that they've invested in doing build out costs. So it really has the ability to be very impactful at the individual level. Some of you may or may not be familiar with this. We do have a local example of this. Trinity Episcopal Church has a shared use kitchen. It's a small kitchen. It currently supports about 7 tenants. However, that particular kitchen only allows one vendor to operate at one time. So it does provide some limitations in its current state, but they do receive a numerous amount of phone calls. According to them, anywhere from 2 to 3 unique calls per week regarding individuals looking for space to be able to operate their food business. Now, to give you an example of what it could potentially mean from a community perspective, one of the organizations that we did a lot of research and talk and conversation with is out of Boston. It's Commonwealth Kitchen. They've been around for about 10 years. And this is the level of impact their kitchen has been able to make on their community. They have over 160 people that have been employed as a result of this in their lowest income neighborhoods. They have 60 alumni companies that have produced 500 jobs, and their combined revenue is $40 million a year in combined revenue. That's pretty significant for them to be able to get started and then be able to have these types of results. Something a little bit closer to us in the region, Hatch Kitchen, they actually got started in 2018. And they have been able to thrive throughout the pandemic as a result of this shared use space. They currently are supporting about 67 businesses in their 10,000 square foot kitchen. And right now that equates to about $54,000 in revenue to them per month that they're collecting from the use of those kitchens. But that gives you the idea of what something like this can do. So we have identified where we would like for this to go. It's a location up in Cathy Shopping Center off of Carlton Road. It's about 11,500 square feet facility. At any given time, 12 to 16 businesses can be in there operating at the same time based on how we've laid the space out. And we have considered, we certainly will have that space staffed, but folks will have 24 hours, 7-day-a-week access to it. And we are currently, based on our current financial model, we're being very conservative and anticipating it'll take us 3 years to get a cash flow positive. So we've built in operating capital to cover that. And so ultimately the development is going to cost us around $2.5 million based on the budgets that we received from contractors to give us an idea of what it would cost to build out plus equipment. And then of course, getting to that cash flow positive in the next 3 years. We're working with Mike Stone King. He has been a wonderful partner in this process and providing us support with developing out our plans. And so this is the plan where we are thus far with it. I mean, it's actually a little bit more developed out than this, but this doesn't have as much busy information on it. But it shows you where these are all like workstations here. So you can kind of understand like why so many people can work at one given time. All of your equipment is along the back here for the most part. But we do have an isolation room here that allows for additional work to happen. So for things like food allergies, things like gluten-free options or nuts or whatever that we need to keep isolated and ensure that it stays free of contaminants. Here's how we will be able to do that and address those types of needs. We will have big walk-in of cooler and freezer space here that individuals will be able to store some of their goods there. These little yellow things that you see, these are cages for dry goods storage that are these are on wheels, so it allows people to move them about, and as well as additional refrigeration throughout. And then we will have a packaging area as well to be able to do small runs of packaged products so that we can support a variety of food type businesses. So if it's a farmer that is wanting to package a product, we can support that. Or if it is an entrepreneur that has like cookies or something like that they want to package, then we will be able to support them in that effort as well. So that gives you an idea of what that looks like. Here's our timeline of what we're doing. We are kicking off our boot camp that starts in April with our first cohort, and we will have those run in 6-week increments. And then we've got, we are already lining up things like our vendors that will help support our entrepreneurs in terms of bookkeeping and marketing support. We have identified the contractors. We've gotten some initial budgets, and so we're finalizing who our contractor will be. And we've already had conversations with the city, and they have, the NDS department has taken a look at what we plan to do, and we will not need a site plan in order to do this particular project, which is really great news. And so, so here's where we are. We are raising 2.5 million. That's the capital that we need to do this program or to do this project. We are certainly in need of you all support from the various localities between the city and also in the county as well, not only financially, but in kind and obviously marketing support. We are applying for Go Virginia funds as well as USDA funds, as well as a number of other grants, but those are just some of the ones that we're applying for. This particular address, we have talked with USDA. They have let us know that the address for the location that we are seeking to do this project is covered by USDA. And so it is open to a number of grant opportunities available through USDA, as well as loan opportunities. We have gotten we will be getting a letter of intent from CIC in support of this project. As many of you may know, they are CDFI now. And so they are seeking to give us up to $500,000 in loan to support the project. And of course, we're process of working with to look for other philanthropic sources to get this project going. So I will stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yolanda, is the program or the kitchen going to be a for-profit enterprise, or is it meant to be a nonprofit?
Nonprofit.
Okay, but it's going to be making I mean, I guess, can you walk me through how I guess once you get to the 2.5 and you've met your costs, then you've got what happens with the additional profits or revenues that come in after that?
So, just like, nonprofit is just a status, right? So just like any business, you want to have income streams to ensure the sustainability of your organization. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're creating a way, we believe in the philosophy of emulate or to model what we want our community to do. And so economic development is a huge part of what our organization focuses on. And so we want to demonstrate that through our own work, that we will build businesses that are sustainable, and it allows for us to do other things within the mission of what we're trying to accomplish as New Hill. But a large part of what we will hope to do is that the more philanthropic dollars we get to support this, that drives our overhead costs down. So we don't have as big of a loan that we've got to pay back. Then that allows us to also be able to pass that down to our entrepreneurs that are participating so that they can experience greater savings as well. So the numbers that you saw in there, like that $1,200, that's like a placeholder, in our financial model. the more grant monies that come in that drives the cost of building it down, then the number can come down, because we definitely want it to flow to our entrepreneurs that are participating.
Thank you for
You're
clarifying.
welcome.
Well,
Any
I
other
just had a quick question about your payment model or method. Is it going to be the hourly that the current food kitchen here in Charlottesville does as well, or are you going to base it off of what size of a company comes in, and how much they're going to be cooking and things like that, or what's that going to look like?
Yeah, so when we did our research, there's several different models. Some people do subscription, like Catch in Richmond, they just do strictly subscription. It's a flat $800 a month, and then you pay for additional things if you want to do storage and that sort of thing. And then there's others that do the hourly. And so we're looking at doing a blend, because everybody is not going to be at a point where they can just start out paying that monthly subscription price when they're new. But then at the same time, there have been some food businesses that we've talked to that have said, well, what if I want to have like a permanent, like large presence in there? And so those are things that we're going to take on a case-by-case basis. But overall, what we anticipate is that most of it will be a subscription model, where once individuals get to a certain point where it doesn't make any sense any longer to pay, by the hour, then they go to the subscription model, and then that is what they will pay. And considering that, right now we have it plugged in at $1,200, that's significantly less than them getting into any type of lease situation, and of course, not having to purchase the equipment.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yolanda, thank you very much for this. Extremely interesting. My question is, how have you all thought about the breakdown between the new startups and existing restaurants? What are you kind of projecting as who's going to participate in this?
So, we've kind of put it in as, our financial model, obviously you put in movable numbers. We've kind of played around with it being like 50-50, but we feel like in the beginning, it probably may be heavily weighted more existing than it is brand new startups, because those guys are going to need to go through their paces. We really want to ensure that folks they have the necessary training and support that they need so that it can be a sustainable business. Our goal is not to necessarily welcome folks in that are not ready to be there, because then we're just taking their money, and especially when we know that long term that business might not be sustainable. So we want to make sure that they've kind of gone through the proper channels of learning, so that when they are ready to start actually paying money out, that there is enough there that we can ensure viability for that business.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Yolanda, great presentation, as I fully expected. Just curious as to why this would be like, on Carlton Road, and why not thinking about Star Hill? I just assumed you guys be looking in that area given the vision for that community. So
Space.
Yeah, I was gonna say just not the space. It's like it's gonna cost a lot of money, and it's not gonna be very movable. Okay, all right, just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, that's a really great question. And ideally, we would love that things were moving along where we could start doing something like with City Yard. And when we initially envisioned this, that's where we envisioned it. But as you all know, we just through the sheer turnover and challenge with, just the stability of our local government, we're going to get there eventually. We're just not quite there yet. But what we do know is that our community can't afford to wait for that to happen. So we need to move forward with implementing some of these ideas that really, especially right now, could help a lot of existing businesses as well as new businesses to be able to sustain, to just kind of right the ship, if you will. As you all know, we all experience it either walking down on the downtown mall, or, you want to go to your favorite restaurant spot only to discover like, oh, their hours are now only Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. You know what I mean? So like, it's going to take some building back to get there. But if we can find a way to help support that, then that's going to be meaningful to the entire community. Any other questions? Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present, and I wish you all a very wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Just as an interesting follow-up for you all, some of you might remember back when we were doing the in-person ACE interviews and the ACE grant program, we've actually supported a few businesses that have been through the other incubator she referenced, which is the Bread and Roses Kitchen on Preston Avenue. So, and we have heard the same thing, that it's very limited in its capacity and size, and it kind of leads one to think that something a little bigger and more robust would be well received. So there's a little bit of a story there that this group has even played with that in years past. So thought I'd share that with y'all. All right, I believe we're moving on now to the FY23 budget, which was included in your material, a draft, as well as some history. The city is in its budget season. The CETA budget gets wrapped into the city budget. So March is our timing on this. We are still in fiscal year 22. This is for fiscal year 23 to start July 1. If you look at this, we are kind of returning back to a pre-COVID stance a little bit. You'll see a reduction in the amount of funds coming from reserves. You'll see the revenues kind of starting to stabilize from our other areas, and starting to wean off. We had a big year last year where we supported some recovery efforts, and starting to go back to a position prior to COVID, and we all hope that continues. Of course, budgets can be amended if needed. So if something were to happen, as it did in early 2020, and this board took immediate action within a month of the less than a month, took immediate action to start to remedy some of that. So if things change rapidly in a negative way, we can always react to that. But this is the proposed budget before you. If you have questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. Going down into the programs area, the matching funds section is probably the most interesting one, and we've added a little there to accommodate situations like we just heard from the Beacon, from New Hill, about the Beacon project, which in my opinion is a very viable project and one that is needed in the community, given our reliance on restaurant hospitality and kind of the food and beverage scene that has developed here. Something of that nature, I think, will be well received and used, and will, as somebody I think referenced, it costs a little bit of money and it's hard to move. From my perspective, that's a really good thing. That means it's going to stay for a while, and it's not going to be an overnight kind of in and out situation where we do have from time to time. So in any case, matching funds for a Go Virginia grant, as she referenced, would come from that line item. And we have allowed some flexibility for this project, as well as, an unknown project or so to come in the year. We also have some other commitments there from previous years, and that kind of fills out that line item. But any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. And we would seek your approval of the budget to move forward today.
Are you looking for a motion to approve?
I was going to ask just one quick question. It's not necessarily with the actual numbers. Just for clarity on my end, and maybe future board meetings going forward, if somebody were to take a look back at this, the S&L name for the building, I know it switched over to S&P, but is it still S&L? I just asked just for clarity. Is that just a historical thing, or?
Yeah, that's clearly a legacy item. Well, around here, there's lots of documentation around that project, and most of it refers to S&L Financial, which was purchased by S&P Global in totality a few years ago. But there are some legacy references to S&L, but those are one and the same. Good question.
Okay.
we'll
All right.
work on cleaning all those up over time.
Hey, Chris, I've got a question. You know, beyond just the numbers, and you, I assume you've thought about this going through the numbers, is what do you see as the biggest challenges of your office coming out of COVID?
Well, a couple of things. One is, we've had some staff turnover and we're rebuilding that. And one of our new staff members we introduced at the last meeting, and I have another one to introduce to you here in a minute. So we're rebuilding the team. That's one thing. And that's a small group. Yolanda made reference to citywide leadership challenges stemming from 2017 to today. That's kind of a bigger organizational challenge that we have and is starting to sort itself out. So those are two kind of more internal things. And sometimes you have internal or external challenges. We're dealing with internal at the moment. But externally, kind of coming back from COVID, we're starting to see some brighter lights, but it's just going to take a little time to kind of churn through that. I think the programs like the Brace, we're about to announce another round of the Brace grant, which is still using a combination of CARES, ARPA, and CETA money, will help folks start to come back. As Yolanda made reference to, restaurants are open, but they're open 4 days a week and only in the evenings. I mean, and that is, we've never had a situation like that in Charlottesville, to my knowledge, in my history here. So it's going to take a little time for that to kind of sort out. And some of these programs and efforts that our office and CETA supports, I think are going to be helpful in pushing that recovery, nudging that recovery forward just a little bit more.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Chris, real quick, could you tell us about the reserve line item? So, we're pulling from someplace for those reserves in the revenue spot. I think that's what I'm reading.
Yes, we typically in a normal year don't do that, but we have the last 2 years. And we do have a reserve. If you look on your monthly financials, all the way to the bottom, there's a line item, and it'll say something like working cash balance. That's where that comes from. And like I said, we typically don't pull from reserve to have a balanced budget, but in certain circumstances, we can do that and have done that. And in this case, we have a small amount coming from reserves. Typically, and the way we got there is in previous years' budgets, we would budget for a reserve. So a payment to the reserve would typically happen. But we've gotten away from that and gone the other way for the last couple of years. I don't anticipate that for the long term. And that reserve is just there to kind of, rainy day fund type of thing would be a good way to think of it. Opportunity, unusual, unique opportunity would be another way to think of it. So that's how that's been used.
Right. Effectively, that's what we're seeing in the expenditures from the past history was where we're reserving in that first line, and we've built up some of that balance over time.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure I was reading it right. That's kind of what I thought it was, but I just want to be sure.
Yeah. This is government budgeting, so it's a little different, and I apologize for that, but you get the hang of it after some time.
Great. Anybody else have any questions? All right, motion to approve the budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
Say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion approved. On to other business. We have the OED 2021 annual report.
Yes, I think we also included this in your package as a PDF. We typically hand out a hard copy of this, but it's been a while since we've had typical. So you've got a digital version, and we also have an electronic version that's not a PDF, that's more like a magazine to flip through, and you may have seen a copy of that. But we released this back in February. It is a kind of a summary of the highlights of the year, the calendar year, 2021. And you'll see some things if you flip through it that you might recognize. Brace grant being certainly one of them, marketing leverage grant being another. In any case, we always share this with the group. Hopefully you find it somewhat interesting. We took a little different approach this year graphically and switched it up. It's a little larger format, a little more white space. And we hope that you like it, but wanted you to have a copy of that. It is posted on our website. We do share it through our newsletter. And we do have a very limited number of actual hard copies. If you happen to be in City Hall, if you can grab one when we meet in person again, which I'm hopeful we do soon, we will get you an actual hard copy, but wanted you to see it nonetheless.
Anybody have questions on that?
And if I could, Mr. Chair, I did want to introduce George Sandridge. He's a new employee in our office. Most of you will remember Jason Ness. George is stepping into Jason's shoes as the business development manager. And he just very recently started with us. So he was sitting in today to kind of get acquainted with, and he's in this kind of sponge period where he's learning every day about our activities and trying to soak all that in. So wanted him to be on board. You will see him in the future for various meetings and various programs, as you did Jason in the past, but wanted you to see him virtually at least and have a chance to associate a name with the face. And if you do happen to see his email come across, you'll know who that is. So George, you just want to give a little wave. we can
Welcome, George.
So anyway, thank you. And with that, I have nothing further.
All right,
Listen,
everybody.
I enjoyed looking through the annual report. You guys really are doing a lot of different things, and so thank you for all your work.
Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate that.
It looks good too, the
Detailed, but it
whole
looked great
format.
too.
Say that
Sorry,
again.
Jonathan, what'd you say?
I was just saying that was not just good detail, but it looked great too, frankly. Oh, you did a great job.
Thank you. Thank
When
you
we
all
were
for
hired,
your,
yeah, it was really
your
good.
services, board members. We appreciate it.
All right, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is this Ed's last meeting?
It's a good point. I believe it might be.
I think so.
I think the annual report that we saw that was passed out last couple of months ago, she said it was, yeah, it ends. Do you have any parting words? Not to put you on the spot too much, but I for one will just say thank you very much. When James and I started at the same time, Ed, you were, I think, our very first meeting. You were the only other guy there, and we had no idea what to expect. And I don't know, it's been a real pleasure to have you here, especially with the turnover we've had with this board. And I don't know if you or Chris or anyone else would like to say thanks. I'm sure other people might want to too, or hear from you.
It's been a pleasure being on the board, and I've learned a lot about the city. And I've really enjoyed the time, especially the grant process that we used to do. That was a lot of fun. So yeah.
Well, we appreciate it, Ed. We appreciated your service on ACE as well as vice chair, I believe, and then chair. And yes, there is an open position currently that council will be looking to make an appointment. So they will likely do that in due time, in short order. As soon as that appointment takes effect, then Ed officially his term ends, but it does end in April. So thank you for bringing that up, Addison. As is our tradition, we typically have a recognition of some sort for our outgoing board members. And given our virtual circumstances, we do not have that today. My intention is to have once we return to in-person meetings, there's a few people that have passed on from the board, left the service of the board, and we have not had those recognitions. So we need to catch up with all of them. So we'll have a big day of recognitions at some point in the future. So thanks.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks for all your work, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Sure.
Chris, I did have one question since you brought that up, the in-board or in-person meetings. Is there any headway on that? Is there any information on that?
Nothing real clear at the moment. The city council did discuss their status last night, and there's a bit of a mixed bag with regard to where they stand. And until they do something, the rest can do nothing. other than virtual. As soon as they start to do something, I think there'll be other conversations about, can all the other boards go back to the way they were? Or are they going to do it piecemeal where they do hybrid meetings or allow some to do virtual and some to do in person? Personally, I'm hopeful that at some date, whatever it is, we just, go back to the in-person status across the board for all boards and commissions as well as the council. A hybrid option would be a nice thing to offer, provided our staff can support it. And that's kind of a question, an ongoing question as to whether the staff can support multiple boards and commissions in a hybrid situation. You'll notice the city logo box is occupied today by Lasheen Parks. She's in our communications office. She's behind the scenes, but is taking her time to facilitate this meeting, send the Zoom invites, make sure it all works. I forget the exact number, but there's 30 to 40 plus boards and commissions. So there's a bunch of them out there. It seems like an easy thing to do, but with that many, it
Right.
becomes a challenge to efficiently do that. So there's going to have to be a discussion about resources and whether we can do the hybrid option, whether we just go back to, if you want to come to the meeting, you show up in person and do it that way. So nothing firm at this point. You'll be the first to know as soon as I know we can change.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion to adjourn.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Ed.